another edition of Fire Up Wisconsin. Woohoo!
Let's get some cheese.
Milk.
I have a great panel tonight. Let me introduce them. Starting off to my right or left, depending on how you're looking at it, Mr. Jeremy.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here.
And then the person that's in front of the brick wall, Mr. George Eichhorn.
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with St. Valentine's Day Massacre, the movie. Ooh.
Ouch.
Yeah, that was a bad one, George.
And then beneath me is Ralph Williams.
Thank you. Thank you, Candy. Jeremy, George.
You're welcome. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on and talking about my home state because I know none of you are from there. So I really do appreciate you accommodating me and letting me talk about my sports teams. The first team we're going to talk about, near and dear to my heart. My dad ushered for the Milwaukee Brewers for over 25 years. So we have to talk about the Brewers. We have to talk about Craig Counsell because how do you not right now talk about what he did? He was a great manager, don't get me wrong, but he could never get us over the hump. He decided this offseason that he was a free agent and he wanted to set the bar high for all managers. And he did just that. But I want to backtrack us a year and a half ago because I think, and I've done some reading, that this is the reason what started his exit out of the Brewers. And that was the joshhader trade. He basically, I think he really felt that was when they decided that they weren't all in for the World Series. I think they traded joshhader, which was one of our best closers. Let's face it. He was lights out at the time. He was doing and he was having an off year, but he was still lights out. They traded him away. I don't think they consulted with Craig at all. And I think he thought, they really they're not all in for the World Series. They're not giving me all the tools that I could use. And as I think back now to this past year, and yes, they did really great in the regular season, but they exited out of the playoffs pretty darn quick. And there were a number of so-called fans on different websites that were really questioning the lineup because when you go into the playoffs, you can only go into the playoffs with so many members on the team. You don't go in with your whole lineup.
Right. It expands to 40 in September, and then it goes back to the 25, I think it is, for the playoffs.
Correct.
Yes.
And I think there was some that were really questioning his 25. And then when he put some of them in to play as well, or bat.
Yeah, because if I remember right, you had a couple of really good young guys on the infield that had a slight pop to the bat and had a good average, but they went with the guys that were steady eddies. They didn't really have pop. They didn't, but I believe a couple of those young guys, what they did have was a high strikeout rate because they were aggressive swingers too. They
were. But at this point, we needed to swing for the fences because let's face it, in the playoffs,
everybody else does.
Well, you win, you go home, and that's exactly what happened.
It's a whole new season, Candy. I mean, forget about what you did in the regular season. Forget about it. Forget it. It's done. Once you get in the playoffs, you got a whole new season. You start at the beginning.
All that matter is where you're seated and who you have in front of you.
You have,
to get to the playoffs.
Right.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people are thinking Craig leaving. Some are happy, some aren't, because obviously he didn't get us over the hump. But to go to your arch rival within your division, that's a slap
in the face.
Is a slap in the face. A lot of people are thinking. Now, you look at it from Craig's standpoint of view. He actually can still live in Milwaukee. Chicago is only an hour and a half away. It's not that far, really. So he really stays as close as he possibly can to his family without moving, because it's the closest team, let's face it, in all baseball. It's the closest team to the Brewers. But it was a slap in the face.
It was an intentional slap in the face.
Oh yeah,
You know what
big
that
time.
was? I'm going to get paid, set the bar for all the other coaches coming out that have any tenure in the playoffs, and get us all paid well. But at the same time, I'm going to show them, because I'm going to take this team and I'm going to beat them in the playoff and beat them to the playoffs. That's what that was.
You know
Because
what?
the Cubs,
Chicago, Jeremy, has a good management structure, and they play to win. They don't joke around, and they have a big fan base there that is really tight on this team. And David Ross couldn't do it, so now they have Counsell to do it.
Right, and that's basically where I was getting ready to go. You
Right.
know, they do have that good structure. They have a decent roster, but they just haven't had anyone who's had any playoff experience to give them a push. Whereas Craig Counsell has been to the playoffs a few times. He hasn't gotten over to the hump. But I think he's the difference in that type of team making something happen rather than not.
And let's face it.
That could be. Yeah, that could be. Go ahead, Candy.
I was going to say, and he's been given a billionaire as an owner that's willing to spend money, and that's evident. Whereas, let's face it, Milwaukee is a small market team with a millionaire owner, not a billionaire owner, that doesn't have the same pockets. They don't have the same TV revenue that the Cubs have.
Right.
So they can't afford the same.
Exactly.
George, go ahead.
Yeah.
You want?
Well, yeah. I mean, you talk about a slap in the face, and I think that more or less he felt too that this was his best opportunity to earn as much money as he can at his age. The old theory about get your best contract now, get as much as you can out of it, had something to do also with the move, because like you said, Jeremy, I mean, he's setting that bar high now for other managers who are in the midst of negotiating or will soon negotiate new contracts to lead their teams. There's no question about it. I mean, it's very hard to accept. Like you said, Candy, if you're a Brewers fan, it's very hard, as they say, bitter pill to swallow. But that being said, again, I'm hesitant to fault the guy. You know, I don't want to call him a backstabber or anything like that. I mean, it's a situation where, like you said, Ralph, I mean, the Cubs' whole management structure is set up that way, that they want to win, they want to succeed. Another one like that has always been the Boston Red Sox, ironically, with an old stadium and a great tradition. You know, that doesn't.
And they sell out games. People go to the games regardless.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, go to Wrigleyfield. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's an opportunity for him. I don't like the fact that he left them. But, hey, look, you know, now you got Mr. Murphy as your manager. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, see what he can do. And hopefully the Brewers can still be contenders.
I think the other part of the sting is that Counsell played for the Brewers. And he grew up in the Milwaukee area. So I think a lot of maybe your less serious, little more casual fans are going to say this is more of a sting because here's a hometown guy. How could he leave the hometown team that he rooted for when he was young? But he said early on in his negotiations, he was not going to give a hometown discount because, let's face it, he knew. I mean, as I listened to those and now as what I know, I realized that Milwaukee didn't have a chance because Milwaukee doesn't have the deep pockets that the Chicago Cubs or some of those. Let's face it, New York Mets were trying to get him as well. Although I really doubt how serious that was that Craig was, because David Stearns is the one that precipitated the joshhader trade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, but New York has a definite deeper pockets than the Brewers do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think he used the Mets to get more money from the Cubs.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I do because, you know, I mean, he interviewed with the Guardians and the Mets and obviously the Cubs that nobody knew about. And Milwaukee.
Top secret. Yeah.
Milwaukee offered him $5.5 million, and he got $8 million.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is.
Big jump.
That is.
5.5 would have been higher than any other manager in the league too, though.
No, true.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with George.
But the Cubs, like we said, they're a rich organization. They got deep pockets, sell out practically every game. That really is a high price to pay to jump from 5.5 to 8 for a manager. It really is. I mean, they hope to get their money's worth. Something that David Ross could not do for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me say a little something here. This is a classic example too of what happened to Clint Hurdle with the Pirates. Clint Hurdle took the Pirates to a couple wild card games in his tenure. I talked to a friend of his at the time when I was working and I could walk. I used to I talked to a close buddy of his, because I used to DJ some of his Pride of Willie events, because his daughters got Pride of Willie, disease. And I was close with Clint Hurdle, and his friend told me, he said, Ralph, he says he's getting disgusted. And it's the same with Craig Counsell now. He probably was getting disgusted because he couldn't take the step to go to the World Series, and the organization is saying, okay, we'll make the playoffs, but that's as far as we can go, and that's where we're going to go. Okay. And Counsell said, I had enough. Hurdle said he had enough. He got out, and now he's the assistant GM in Colorado and soon to be the bench coach down at the LA Angels. So, I mean, that's a similar situation, Candy, as to what has happened with Craig Counsell. And I used to Clint Hurdle thing.
I agree. We just want to say, Jennifer Lee Cobb said, great show.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for checking us out. So, Craig Counsell's right-hand man was Pat Murphy.
Right.
So, Pat Murphy interviewed for the job. The Brewers did give him the job. Let's give you a little background on Pat Murphy. He actually attended a school down here that a lot of you have heard recently, Florida Atlantic Owl University, the Florida Atlantic Owls. He was a catcher and an infielder. He also pitched on occasion. He was honored on FAU's 20th anniversary team as a pitcher and utility player. And in 2008, he was inducted into the school's Baseball Hall of Fame. He signed a professional baseball contract with San Francisco Giants back in 1982. He played for the minor league 4 years in the minor leagues, and then for the Giants and the Padres. He has been coaching for years and years. He was the head hired by Arizona State University as the head coach of the baseball team in 1995. They won the Pac-10 Conference Championship in 2000 and consecutive Pac-10 championships in 2007, 8, and 9. He actually, he became the youngest collegiate coach to reach 500 career victories back in 1998. He won the Baseball America's Coach of the Year award and was Pac-12 Coach of the Year 4 times. He resigned. He did then, where else did he go? He went to the San Diego Padres. He has been with the Brewers since 2015. He is 64 years old. He is very well loved from what I've heard within the baseball, on the baseball team. Christian Yelich likes him. I've heard that he's just very warm, very well liked. And then they made a surprising little hire. They hired our old second baseman, Ricky Weeks, as not a bench coach, but he's an assistant, because there's a lot of people are speculating that after Ricky Weeks finished his baseball career, he went to FIU and got a sports management degree, and they're thinking that he might be the next manager for the Brewers after Pat. So let's see, George, your opinion on the hire with Pat Murphy and Ricky Weeks.
Well, Murphy obviously has some great credentials. I'm not overly concerned about his age, 64, 65. That's not bad because we know that guys like Dusty Baker and Washington can manage well into their 70s. I do like his solid background in the college game, and I'll tell you why. I mean, there's a lot of good things that college coaches, uh, you know, coach up, if you will, for these kids that are coming out. And I think the fact that he spent that many years in Notre Dame, and then, as you mentioned, in Arizona, I think that's great. He's got a great relationship with young players. That is very important in today's game. And I think that I think Murphy is well qualified. There's no question about that. He's been a coach on the major league level for a long time, and got a good reputation, like you said, Candy. It seems like the players and management wherever he's worked likes him. But again, he's got to make tough decisions. Obviously, you can't just be a nice guy as manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. You got to make the tough decisions, strategy, managerial strategy, and all that. And you mentioned about Weeks. That's very interesting. To have the like associate coach or whatever they want to call it. But again, he's a good fellow too because I think he's done a good job in his career path as well. And really, I see nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can't announce that he's the manager in waiting. That wouldn't be proper to do. But the fact that he's there obviously means a lot. And I'm sure it's going to give a lot of confidence to those players that and front office people that work with Weeks too over the years. So all in all, I think it's a win-win for the Brewers. I really do. Both these guys have great experience levels. They both attained greatness, even like I said, in the college game or on the major league level. So I think the Brewers made a solid 1-2 punch hiring with both of them.
Ralph, your take on the hirings?
I agree with George because look, if you're a small market team, you have to have a strong minor league system. You have to have strong scouts, and you have to have a good front office. You can bring in a few, free agent guys of a small caliber, like a Carlos Santana, if you decide to sign him again. You understand what I'm saying? Guys like that'll help your team. But you have to build your minor league system. And it looks to me like with this Pat Murphy, that's how it looks like Milwaukee's going to go here. And that's good because if you have a lot of young players and you have a good minor league system, and if he surrounds himself with some great assistant, with some great coaches, hey, you know what? Milwaukee could be back in the playoffs again. It all depends on, how who he hires, to help him with this team, and so on.
Jeremy.
The one thing that's really good about college coaches coming into the major leagues and having a career there, they're really good at helping the young guys with their fundamentals more than anything else. So that also is going to lend credence that he'll probably pick good coaches to help with the farm teams. So that's going to lead to better things down the future. It may not lead to immediate success year one, because you guys just lost some firepower too from your vet status this offseason already. Mark Canha just went to Detroit. You lost Craig Counsell, and there is going to be a little bit of a level drop there coaching wise because he's got to get up to better speed at that level. But I think it's a great move for the future of the team. And I'm quite sure they didn't do a one and done deal with them, or they plan on doing a one and done deal. They have to expect a little bit of drop off. I'm not saying not make the playoffs at all. They might be like the play-in team.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you, Richie Weeks' name is all over the Brewers franchise record book. He ranks 6th all-time in runs and walks, 7th in stolen bases, 8th in triples, 9th in at-bats, 10th in games, doubles, extra base hits, and total bases. I can tell you one of the things, and I think part of the reason why I think this was a pretty good hire is the Brewers have lacked for the last couple years, and everybody has talked about it, hitters, people on base running. We've had really good pitching, but it's our ineffectiveness to string together hits. We get people on base, but we leave them stranded.
Yes.
And that's been, so I think that's where they really, and Ricky Weeks, I always remember him and his speed. Like he stole a lot of bases, and he would, he was fast. So I think that's another place and another reason why they brought him in, is to help with that. Because I'm hoping they realize where their strengths were and where their weaknesses, and that they strengthen those weaknesses.
Yeah, and that's very important, Candy. I mean, the situation with the team here in Detroit, the Tigers, same thing. So many players stranded on the bases. You can't let all those scoring opportunities go. And the fact of the matter is speed does matter, and speed is very important. So stealing bases, that's a good point, with Weeks' background. And again, like you said, in delivering on those runs and those RBIs, especially when guys are in scoring position on second and third base, is so crucial to be successful. You need it. You need it if you're going to win.
Correct. The other, just a little tidbit, and you guys don't need to talk about this at all, but I do want to add that the Brewers have had an especially busy couple of days. The American Family Field funding package passed through the state Senate on Tuesday. So
Yay.
That is a good thing, because we obviously needed improvements to our baseball park. And as all of you know, we have an expensive park because we have a retractable roof on there.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, oh, why should we do that? Why should we spend the money? But the Brewers bring in a lot of revenue. And the one thing I will say is the fact that they built that dome stadium, they're always guaranteed a game when it's scheduled at home. You see how many of these games that they had to make up in a lot of different parks, where they were talking about, oh, well, Miami at one point was going to have to go back to New York for a 1-game play last regular season because it might have depended on their seeding in the playoffs. That's the one thing that I will say the Brewers were very smart with, because it allows everybody in the state, if they want to go to a game at Miller or at American Family Fields, they're guaranteed the game is going to be. I'm sorry, it's always going to be
Miller Park. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the one thing that I will always say, because you'll be surprised on any given day how many buses you're going to see at the ballpark, because they will bus in from different parts of the state to go to a game. And that was one of the smartest things, because the fans then can extend all the way throughout the state because they can all attend. Okay, so enough of the Brewers.
Hey, you know what, Candy? I wanted to add one thing real quick. Lloyd McClendon, who was a former Pirate manager at one time, when that was first built, formerly known as Miller Park, he called it an airplane hangar. He says it looks like an airplane hangar.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
It does. But I can tell you, though, that I've also seen some unusual games there, because other stadiums were in disarray or had too much snow or whatnot. I remember seeing, I think it was Cleveland, Houston. I think they played there very early on in the season, because they couldn't play in Cleveland for some reason. And so they played at Miller Park, and so they got extra revenue. And so I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. They were smart when they put that dome on it. Yes, it cost them.
Oh, that was a smart move. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like in Detroit. Jeremy knows this. How many times, Jeremy, the National Football League? Hey, Mrs. Ford, we got a game here we want to reschedule. Can you host it? I mean, that's a feather in the cap.
The
like
Buffalo game the week before the Lions game, Thanksgiving Day.
USFL uses it for now. They've used it.
Yep.
Wrestling has been there. The Super Bowl, they're even going to have another Super Bowl there, so.
We hope.
Yeah.
So. And the other thing is that, like you said, it also makes you look good too, amongst the other teams and amongst the other owners, because you are, it's kind of like an olive branch, the old olive branch, but, you're helping somebody out. You're helping somebody out. You're helping another city out, another team. when they have a weather calamity or
Related
something.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought that up, Candy, because the Brewers have done that. Yes.
They have, and that it's beneficial, and it brings in a lot of revenue to the state.
Sure.
So you mentioned Detroit and Ford. So I'm going to switch gears to our NFL team, but I'm going to actually give the field to Mr. Ralph because our teams played this past Sunday, and my team did not sneak out that win. So,
No.
Ralph, give us your take about the Packers-Steeler game.
Well, I've said this about the Steelers the whole year. It's better to be lucky than good because they're not good. Most of the games that they have won have been because the other team made a lot of mistakes, penalties, beat yourself, fumble the football, interceptions. I can name just a few things, okay? And Matt LaFleur is not easy to outcoach. And Mike Tomlin had some really good, and I never ever say this about him because forever he's had bad clock management. This past week against Green Bay, he had some of the best clock management I've seen him do. Okay, with less than a minute left, he kept the punt team on the sidelines until the clock ran down so that it wouldn't give Green Bay enough time to even try to score a touchdown or anything like that. And once again, our defense came up with an interception or a big play at the end of the game that that we won. And if it wasn't for our defense, I don't think we would have won that game.
But thankfully for you, you do have that defense.
Yes, we do have a good defense. We're a little thin at inside linebacker. We got a couple guys. I always use Tom on how he says guys. We have a couple guys that are coming up from the practice squad that have some NFL experience. We can move some people around from inside to outside. So I think we're going to be okay.
So I think before we go any further, I'm going to do a little plug for the South Florida Tribune.
Okay.
If you look at Mr. Jeremy in the corner up there, he's got a little book. And I will show you. It actually is a reality. My husband, Scott, wrote a book. It just came out. It is now available on Amazon or on Kindle. Look for it. It's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. You can also go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where my husband writes, Scott Morganroth, or Mr. Jeremy writes, or Mr. George Eichhorn. They both write for us.
Can I ask a question real quick? How's Greg Foots doing? I haven't seen him on here for a while.
You haven't seen who?
Greg.
Greg is taking a break. He's working a lot, and he has some other personal issues that he wanted to take care of, so he wanted to take a break for a while. So that's
okay.
Why
I haven't seen him for a while and talked to him either, so
Yeah, yes, exactly. Down in George's corner, there's in the little lower right corner, there's going to be a red subscribe button. Please hit that red subscribe button. Like us, share us to all your friends, tell everybody about it. Yes, I will let the cat out of the bag. We did hit 1,000 subscribers, but we want more because we always want more. We want people to enjoy what they're watching and listening to. So that was a short plug. Let's move on now. Let's kind of evaluate how we think Jordan Love is doing. And this time I'm going to start with Jeremy.
He's had moments where he looks great and moments where he looks really bad. There's no in between, and it's the inconsistencies of a first-year starter. You might as well say he's a rookie starter right now because that's exactly what he looks like.
Yes.
He'll have a good team against a good game against a bad team. And God forbid, I hate to say it, but horrible games versus good teams. I mean, there's no in between. Right. And he has snatched defeat from the jaws of victory a few times.
He has.
So we all know, we've all been here, all of us, whether it's Steelers, Lions fans, Bears fans, Vikings fans, it doesn't matter. We've all dealt with this in the past. It happens. But one thing you can say that you're doing that the Vikings aren't doing, you're not the most penalized team in the league.
Yeah.
It may be up there. I mean, I think you guys are at 26th right now. but that means there's 6 teams worse than you. Kudos.
Yes, we we have some work to do.
For the youngest team in the NFL, that's a good thing, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Exactly. Ralph, your take on Jordan Love?
Well, like Jeremy said, Jordan Love is, he's taking his bumps and bruises for a first-year quarterback. But the good news was he got some tidbits and tips, I'm sure, by watching Aaron Rodgers over the years. And, that's a good thing for him. Okay. But the bad news is this is his first year as a starter, and he has to get the speed of the game up to speed. Okay. And once he gets that done, he could be a good quarterback. Then again, if they feel that he's not a good quarterback, they could go into the draft. This draft coming up, folks, there's a ton of good quarterbacks in this draft, and they might do something there. I mean, we'll see what happens with him down the road. I have confidence that he could make it, but he's another Mason Rudolph like we have that sat behind Ben Roethlisberger for a ton of years and really didn't get a lot of chances to play. And that was Jordan Love. So, but let him as a first-year starter, let him get his bumps and bruises, and I think he'll be a good quarterback.
George, your take on Jordan Love?
Well, I thought it would be a little bit better than this, only because of what you alluded to, Ralph, with him being under the wing of Aaron Rodgers for so many years. You look at his statistics. Okay, so he's over 2,000 yards, which is obviously not high enough. I mean, he's completed 58% of his passes. I don't like his touchdown to interception ratio. He's got 14 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So, I mean, there are a lot of things he's got to improve on, but in his defense, he's been sacked, I think, 19, 20 times or so this year. So, you always need a good, strong offensive line, obviously, to protect your quarterback. I agree with Ralph, though. I mean, I think the option is there. Perhaps if the Packers want to go into the draft and look for a new quarterback or another potential first-string quarterback, that option is there. But again, you always weigh the pros and cons with that because you have so many other needs on your team. And I'm not just picking on the Packers. Almost all teams, as we know, have other needs. Or there could be a free agency route for quarterbacks as well. So I would give him a C+ so far, Candy. I would never give up hope on him. He's got a strong arm, and I really think that like you guys were saying, I mean, this is his coming out. It's the first year. Yeah.
So, Jeremy, to your point, really inconsistent. So if I go through and I'm just going to go down the line, the games that he's started this year and played. Last week, his quarterback rating was 71.8. The week before, 115.5. The previous week, 72.1. 90.3. 32.2. 69.9. 66.4. 113.5. And 123.2. So yes, really, really inconsistent. And I know there are a lot of fans out there that are really down on him. And the first thing they want to do is they're going to try and compare him to our last two quarterbacks. Our last two quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And Brett Favre has come out, and so has Aaron, and both of them have come out and said it is not fair to compare Jordan Love to both of us, to either of us, because we both had more of an offensive line. We both had veteran receivers. Yes, we all look at, is he a rookie? Yes, this is his first year, but he's been out before. So he's sat behind Rodgers. But the problem with sitting behind a quarterback as of the caliber of Rodgers is really how many reps does he get in practice those last 3 years? And how many with the number one offense?
That you can say that, but guess what? Aaron Rodgers looked exactly like Jordan Love his rookie year.
Yes, they all did.
He did have a better O-line, and he did have better wide receivers and a better defense. And they only won, what was it, 5-6 games that year? and he had what, a 57% completion percentage and more interceptions than touchdowns. So say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's trending in that same direction. Do you want to know why? Brett Favre didn't mentor Aaron Rodgers.
No.
Aaron Rodgers did not mentor Jordan Love.
No.
That is what I'm getting at. He didn't get a chance to really learn anything from Aaron because Aaron was pissed they even drafted him, just like Brett Favre was pissed they drafted Aaron.
Correct.
And another thing too, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre had two really good offensive coaches. I mean, Mike McCartney and Mike Holmgren. Okay, very good coaches. All
Mike
right.
Holmgren is way better than Mike McCarthy. You
Oh
can
yeah.
see that
Oh,
because
absolutely, Jeremy. I agree with you 100%. Yes.
As much as I hate to say it, talent-wise, that Dallas team is more talented than what the Packers were when they won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. And yet Mike McCarthy can't coach that offense to be consistent against a team as bad as the Cardinals.
I've said it many times, folks. And what I've said is like this. Some people can be coordinators and some people can be head coaches. Okay. And some people can bake a cake and some people can't. And that's where it is with Mike McCarthy. Maybe he should go back to being a coordinator because he's not, if he's not that good of a head coach, that's what he has the talent and he can't do it. That's what he needs to do.
If you don't teach your starting quarterback how to do the 2-minute drill when you slide to stop to hand the ball to the ref, that is a fundamental coaching problem. And that falls not only on the head coach, it falls on the OC and the quarterback's coach. It falls on all of them.
True.
I agree.
Very true. But
the head coach is the captain of the ship. So, that's where it all lies, right there.
Yep.
That is, and that reminds me of the whole Mario Cristobal with the Hurricanes and how they had the game won, and he didn't tell everybody just take a knee. Just take a knee. They had to run the ball and they fumbled the ball. That is exactly correct. But in that regards, yes, there is the head coach and he's ultimately responsible. But there's other coaches on there that need to speak up too. Now, whether they did and they didn't listen, I don't know. But yes, I agree. Aaron Rodgers did not mentor Jordan Love, whereas he is to Wilson.
And you saw it immediately. Yes. The difference between Zach Wilson week 18 last year and the Zach Wilson we saw make that comeback versus the Bills, that was two different Zach Wilsons.
Yes, it was.
Looked exactly the same all season. The difference has been the caliber of defense played against them.
Yeah. Good point.
Well, another thing too, Jeremy, Nathaniel Hackett's a horrible head coach, but he's a good offensive coordinator. And by him being his presence there and working with quarterbacks, that's another reason why Zach Wilson's a better quarterback too.
And I'm going to take back every bad thing I said about Sean Payton at the beginning because of Denver Broncos, because of the way they started. The turnaround they've made right now, and you got two of the hottest teams in football going against each other this weekend. And the fact it's in Mile High Stadium, that affects stamina and breathing. I expect the Vikings to lose.
Yeah, well, you know something, guys, and Candy, I want to tell you, Mike Westhoff is their assistant head coach. I interviewed him on one of my podcasts. He has a book out. He's one of the number one best special teams coaches in the NFL. He worked under Sean Payton down in New Orleans. He was the special teams coach. So I'm sure Mike Westhoff is blowing in Sean Payton's ear. He's been in football for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah, he's a good guy. Very talented.
Yes, he is. Yes. Yeah.
Since we're talking about coaches, let's talk about Matt LaFleur. How are we rating him now? Because I said the end of last year or the beginning of this year that not only were we going to see what Jordan Love could do, but now we're actually going to see how well of a coach Matt LaFleur is, because Aaron Rodgers carries or could make up the difference if LaFleur wasn't doing well, because he's that smart and he had been in the league that long. So now the question is, how do we rate Matt LaFleur as a coach? And we're going to start with Ralph.
Well, I have to say this too. If you're coming in as a rookie coach with your with your ears wet and you're coming in, you're just starting, you need to get some good assistants behind you. If Matt LaFleur has good assistants there, I'm sure he could be able to have a better season, maybe towards the end where you come out with a 9-8 season or something. Okay. But if he doesn't have the assistants and he has this bad ego, he's in trouble. And that's where, and I've seen that too many times, and I'm sure George and Jeremy can back me up on this. How we've seen some of these coaches have these young coaches have these arrogant attitudes, like something doesn't stink, and then they think they can coach and they think they're better than everybody else, and they're not. And we'll see what Matt LaFleur does, if he has egg on his face or if he actually does well as a coach. I think right now he's working with what he has, and I think if he has good assistants, back him up. And he lost Nathaniel Hackett, and so I mean, let's see what he can do. Does he have a good supporting cast, as they say? If you have you want a good play or a good movie, you got to have a good supporting cast.
George, your take on Matt LaFleur?
Well, this is not a good season. Obviously, the sample size is 9 games, and he's 3-6. But when you look at the Packers and you look at the situation with these injuries, oh my God. I mean, you got Tyler Davies, you got Luke Tenuta, you got David Beccarty and Savage out, and Stokes and Kenny Clark and Jenkins and Alexander, and some of them are questionable, but I mean they've been hit hard. A lot of teams have, but Packers I think especially been hit hard with a lot of injuries. I'm still a supporter of Matt LaFleur. I still think that he's a decent coach, and I can't give him anything more than a C this year so far, but being 3-6, but I do think he has some good qualities that I think the Packers really need. So we can relate to the players pretty well, and I think that's very important. So I give him a pass on this year, but he better come up with a above 500 record next year for sure.
Oh yeah.
Jeremy.
It's usually the first 3 years that they give you the benefit of the doubt. It's your 4th year that you got to perform.
Yeah.
Jeremy, your take?
Well, they couldn't beat the Lions with Aaron Rodgers, and now they can't beat him with Jordan Love. What do you expect? He's Matt LaFraud.
Oh,
I don't see this great offensive mind everybody has talked about. Aaron Jones looks the worst he's ever looked. Yes, he started out the year injured, and yes, he's been injured off and on. He should have stayed off the field the first 6 weeks to fully heal rather than bumping in and out of the lineup. It has really hampered his hamstring recovery. A.J. Dillon, he does not look like he's as great of a pick as everybody thought, and proof is in the pudding. Last year, who was the stud running back in Detroit? It wasn't DeAndre Swift. It was the guy that the Packers let go because they didn't want to re-sign him. And he signed here for, what was it, $3.9 million for that season? That tells you all you need to know about not only Matt LaFraud, what's his name, Goody Puke? I don't know.
Tough act to follow, Candy. A tough act to follow when Jeremy's on the.
Yeah, that was a good one, Jeremy. Matt LaFraud.
So
well, don't forget Perdon't.
Yeah.
One of your favorites.
Thank God Jordan Love didn't go to Perdon't, because I'd be going off on Perdon't even more. The only thing they've only had 2 players come good out of there, Mike Allstott and Drew Brees. Other than that,
there's a guy named Greasy that went there too, my friend.
He's overrated. Oh.
So here's my issue with Matt LaFleur. Jeremy, you gave a stat earlier that we are 26th in the league in penalties. I don't care if you're a young team or an old team. A coach has to motivate you and teach you discipline, and that has to be there. I don't care who you are. You cannot give up free yards to other teams. If you have an offense that's struggling, here, let's give you more yards. Or a defense gives the other offense more yards. No. So
It's mostly your offensive line giving the defense more yards that you have to gain the first down, which is why also I believe the Packers are like 23rd or 24th in first downs this year because a lot of them happen on third down.
Yeah.
They're ranked 21st in total yards, 19th in passing yards, 21st in rushing yards, 21st in points, 8th in third down, 12th in total yards the defense has given up, passing yards 7th, 27th in rushing yards, 11th in points, and 13th in third downs.
Go ahead. That brings joy to my heart. I can't help it.
So the other point that I have in problem with Matt LaFleur is publicly calling out certain players after games. You do that inside the locker room. You do that one-on-one. You do not do that as a head coach. You win as a team or you lose as a team. You do not call out one and say, you lost the game for us or you did this.
And look in the same division from the opposite end of the spectrum. When the Lions lose a game, what does Dan Campbell do? Accepts responsibility for him and the coaching staff.
Very good.
We should have had our guys in a better position to win, is what they've said the entire 3 years. And he's exactly right. I could care less if you got the worst roster in the league. Coaching can make a difference. And we saw it.
True.
2021, after we stripped what little bit of talent was left off of that team and re-signed a guy that only played one game in one quarter, and Romeo Okwara to a $13 million contract, and he goes off the rails with an injury and doesn't come back for a year and a half. We had the worst roster in the league that year. The only bright spot we had was Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's it. And Amon-Ra didn't even get a chance to shine until Anthony Lynn was gone because he was so bad as an offensive coordinator.
Well, I can tell you there's a lot of people in Packer country that want Joe Barry, defensive coordinator, gone.
You guys never should have hired him. All you had to do is ask Detroit fans. We knew.
Yeah.
That soft umbrella zone coverage that he does against every team, it does not work. The only reason why you guys win any games at all is because the offense is able to put it on their back against a bad team. That's it. You look at it. The offense, when you guys play a bad team, you guys put up 20-plus points. Everybody else, 17 or less. That tells you all you need to know about what's going on with your defense.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And yet Matt LaFleur keeps standing up for Joe Barry. But he'll take down a player that didn't do good, but not one of his coaches.
When I hear a coach take down players, you know what I hear coming out of their mouth at that time? You guys remember that movie Bruce Almighty?
Yes.
Do you remember when Jim Carrey started making it look like Steve Carroll was an idiot on the news?
Yeah.
That's what I see when I see a coach throwing a player under the bus.
Completely agree. With that being said, they have a couple of tough games stretch here. We play the Chargers, then we play Detroit on Thanksgiving Day, and Detroit's had that game. They play every Thanksgiving for years and years and years and years because they played it when no one else wanted it, and then everybody else wanted it, and they're like, no, we're not going to give it up. And then we go into I don't remember if it's at home or not. I think it's at Kansas City on Sunday night.
Yeah,
you guys are brutal the next 3 weeks.
You know what though, Candy, you might be able to beat the Chargers if you have if Brandon Staley makes some boneheaded calls and moves. You might be able to win.
I don't know what Brandon Staley did last week versus the Lions. But I think he copied Aaron Glenn's defensive playbook because it looked almost exactly the same. Everybody was in soft zone coverage, and they didn't blitz at all. We never once heard that young stud play an outside linebacker that was drafted as a D tackle, Tuli Tuapasopo, getting in the backfield on a blitz. He was covering our tight end, and he didn't do that well either. 4 catches on 6 targets for 40 yards.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule, Candy, coming up. No question about it for the Packers. Very difficult games for them to win.
Yes.
They haven't played on Thanksgiving in Detroit in a number of years. I was so glad when I heard the league release that schedule saying the Green Bay was going to be in here, because we all know what a great rivalry that was on Thanksgiving Day, with a guy named Bart Starr going up against a guy named Fearsome Foursome, Detroit's defense, Alex Karras and all that. And that's a great game. Unfortunately, the Lions are that much ahead, as we know, of Green Bay this year. So it could be a pretty ugly affair as far as a lopsided score on Thanksgiving Day. And then Kansas City, I don't see much hope at all of getting a win there. Their best chance would be the Chargers, probably.
I do have to say, though, that I did have it wrong. They are playing at Lambeau for both the Chargers game and the Chiefs game.
Oh, okay.
I still don't think it
night,
makes it any better.
Well,
Yeah.
Sunday night and let's face it, that's December 3rd. It could be cold, and I'll throw one last little nugget. It's my birthday that day.
So there you go.
Let's hope that they could somehow pull
a good birthday present.
All you need. Okay, wait. I know what you need. You need the wide receivers to play exactly like they did versus Detroit.
Yes.
Because that's the only way you're beating this team.
Right.
It's Kadarius Stonehands Jabroni having it go right off his hands into Rudy Ford's hands for a pick 6.
There we go.
I think that was one of your 2 touchdowns versus Detroit, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just saying, it was not a good offensive output that game.
It was not.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I like pouring salt in wounds. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, when you're, Jeremy, you're a Detroit fan. I mean,
I have taken 30 years of getting salt poured in my wounds every year, mostly to the chagrin of every Packers fan under the planet.
The only thing I will say, Jeremy, is the only game that I have attended at Ford Field, and George will attest to this, because it was 8 years ago, and they played on my birthday. It was Thursday night football, and Aaron Rodgers threw the Hail Mary that everybody keeps seeing on Thursday night highlights to win that game.
And isn't that the one that knocked Detroit out of first place in the division? Because
I think so.
We had the 1-game lead, and the tiebreaker would have been if the Packers won.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just
because
a terrible
then they swept
ending.
us.
Terrible
so that
ending.
was my birthday
and
gift.
that was also the 2014-15 season. That was Darius Slay's rookie year and Jim Caldwell's first year in Detroit.
Yes.
And not only was it that, I still to this day do not know why Terrell Austin had Darius Slay sitting in the flat on a Hail Mary.
He's our defensive coordinator now, so we put up with him here in Pittsburgh.
Who, Austin?
Yes. He's our defensive coordinator.
These guys just find new jobs, don't they? Even as bad as sometimes these coaches are. Coordinators.
Well, we had a good defensive coordinator. They ran him out, Dick LeBeau.
We all know.
Mike Tomlin couldn't work with him.
We all know a certain friend of mine that's
Mike Tomlin wanted control of everything. So there you go.
All right, Ralph. Let's get back to Green Bay.
Sure. Yeah.
We all know.
But we have Terrell Austin now. And I know what you mean, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm. We all know Terrell Austin. He had a Lamborghini of a defense that year that he coached up to be the number 2 defense in the NFL. First and actually third in NFL history for rushing yards per game against at 59.9. Terrell Austin had the Cadillac of defenses with a Lamborghini motor, and they turned it into a Chevette by the time Caldwell finished.
Chevette.
Well, guys, this has been so much fun. I appreciate all of you guys coming on. I'm now going to turn it over to each of you. If you could tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and because I know you all have broadcasts that we want to promote. And let's start with Ralph.
Ralph Williams 737 at gmail.com, www.rwmedia.org. I have my own YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook or LinkedIn. and Twitter X platform. I also have my own radio show on Tuesdays, 5 to 6 p.m. till the end of 2023. It's called Sports Corner Radio with me, Ralph Williams, Smoking Jim Frazier. And we're on Beaver County Radio, WBVP Radio, 99.3 FM, 12:30 a.m. And we're also live on Facebook and YouTube and our website as well. So you can catch it that way as well, the radio show. And I also have 2 national shows on Blog Talk Radio. I do with Mark Mancini. And I'm here and I'm everywhere. So there you go.
Sounds good. George.
Just like Scott, I have a book too. Mine is called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And you can find a link to it at the end of my columns. I'm a writer just like Scott and Jeremy at the South Florida Tribune, Motor City Tribune. And you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can also reach me on LinkedIn under my name, and you can reach me on X, and formerly Twitter, at SandGSports99. And follow me on many of these shows here. Good to be with all of you tonight, and I look forward to more shows on the Sports Exchange together and the other platforms too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you can find me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on my channel, which is Motor City or Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions. You can also find me on here whenever Scott needs me, but mostly on any Fire Up show that's on Thursdays at the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. You can also find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com with Scott Morgan, Roth Jorge, Corn, and many other affiliates as well as writers. As I write underneath the Motor City Tribune heading about the NFL and the Detroit Lions, I like doing deep dives into players and stats and all sorts of stuff. So if you like to read about the Lions, take a gander. And don't forget, like, subscribe, share. We don't just talk Wisconsin sports on this channel. We don't just talk Lions. We don't just talk baseball. We don't just talk football. We talk everything. And the pundits, you never know what they're going to talk about because those things can get crazy.
Okay, so my turn. So you can see me Tuesday nights on 3 Chicks in a Pod or Chicks in Salsa. We talk about all kinds of different topics, let me tell you. We talk this week about hockey, and then we talk about NFL and NBA and women's sports, collegiate sports. Then there's South Florida Tribune, where we have a show No Limits. We have Motor City Madmouth show. We have Sports Exchange, Pundits Pundit. We have 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We have Inside the Pigskin. We have No Limits. Let me think if there's any other missing. There probably is, and I apologize, but you can always...
Professor and the Pupil.
Professor and the Pupil. You're right. Thank you very much. Scott wrote a book, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It just came out. It's hot off the press. Go get your copy on Amazon or go to Kindle if you'd like to read it. Ebook. Visit our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Like Jeremy said, we have all kinds of affiliates. We also regularly cover the Miami Hurricanes football team. So if you want to see any of their post-game press conferences, they're up on our YouTube channel. We will be covering their last home game of the season this Saturday. Let's see. We do Marlins. We go a lot of places. We were over at FSU this last weekend to see the Hurricanes play FSU. What else? If you have any show ideas, email us. Comment on our broadcasts. Our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Thank you, Scott, even though he's behind the scenes tonight and not up front, because normally he's up here. Appreciate everything that he does for our channel, for writing the book, for having the idea of having SouthFloridaTribune.com, and for staying. He's been in the media for over 40 years with George, so the two of them kind of go hand in hand. I appreciate all of you guys being on tonight. So thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, George. And thank you for everyone tuning in tonight.
They're closer than peanut butter and jelly. But anyways, I'd like everybody to stick around for a minute after we get done.
Sure.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.